subscribe, like, comment, share.
At that moment, Matthew's heart started falling into the depths of darkness. Griffith Group wasn't affected in the slightest by the event. Instead, a lot of big companies were planning on working with them, and that raised their share prices overnight. Eventually, it doubled over the span of 2 weeks. At the same time, Jack's new song was released on all mainstream streaming platforms. Jack was a decent singer in the first place, so once his new song was released, his fans came in droves, jacking the song up to the top of the charts. God, his new song is a banger. Man, this thing slaps. This is my jam now. I've listened to this thing a million times now. Goat. The song just came out. What do you mean you listened to it a million times? The comments wouldn't stop coming in, and the ratings kept shooting up. Elise was doing her Chinese listening practice, but then Michaela interrupted. Elise, you have to listen to my husband's latest hit. It's so good. Michaela took Elise's earphones off, and hooked hers up to Elise. When Elise heard the song, she knew Jack was the singer, for he had a deep voice. He was born to be a singer. Great voice, very distinct. Not bad, right? Michaela asked happily. Elise smiled and nodded at her. Not bad. Michaela was delighted to hear that. I knew it. I'm going to spread his new song to my friends. She then posted the song to her wall. The status garnered a lot of likes in a short while, but then someone commented, "Hey, this feels like a song H would come up with." Another commenter commented, "Huh. Never thought of it that way. But now that you said it, it does sound like the kind of song H would create." Michaela stared at the comments in disbelief. Impossible. My husband wrote the song all by himself. There's no way it sounds like a song from H. They are saying Jack copied someone's work. Impossible. Michaela wrote back angrily. Nonsense. Jack won't copy anyone. He wrote the song all by himself. What do you guys know? Elise noticed Michaela's mood change, since her expression turned from happy to dour in a second. Elise even felt a hint of anger from her. Are you all right, Michaela? Michaela wanted to tell her what happened, but then it wasn't something great, so she decided to hide it. It's nothing, Elise. Go back to your listening practice. I'll be off now. Elise thought something was off, but she couldn't put a finger on it. But Michaela's a straightforward girl. She will tell me if it's really serious. So, Elise dismissed it, and went back to her listening practice. Danny was the one who came to pick her up after school that day. Ever since the company got into trouble, a switch had flipped within him, and he was a changed man. Danny used to be more nonchalant and laid back, but now, he was quieter and calmer. When he saw Elise, he called her boss. She got in the car, and it drove toward Griffith residence. Elise was scheming through her Chinese textbook, but then she realized Danny was glancing at her. Yes, Danny. Danny coughed sheepishly. You don't have to say it, if you don't want to. I don't have time for this. Elise grunted. Danny panicked. Wait, boss. I have to tell you this. Elise looked at him. Danny mustered up all his courage and asked, Boss, how can I raise my grades and get myself into a good college? Elise touched his forehead. You don't look sick to me. What happened? Danny looked embarrassed, but he pressed on. Your grades are awesome. You must have a way of studying, so can you teach me? The entrance exam is only 5 months away. How can I raise my grades enough to get into a great college? Elise put her textbook down. She was surprised about Danny's sudden change, so she asked, Why do you want to get into college all of a sudden? I mean, you can still be successful even if you don't do anything. So why go the extra mile? You came this far without doing much, so why now? Danny used to think that way as well. With how rich and powerful his family was, he was already set for life. The future wasn't something to get worried about, nor did he see the need to improve himself, until his family got into trouble. It was then he realized he wasn't powerful enough to help his family. Nay, he was practically useless in the crisis, and that was a big wake-up call for him. That moment of powerlessness made him realize he had to do something, while he still had time. He knew he had to do something, so he could stand on his own 2 feet. Because I want to be better. That was the simplest answer he could come up with. Elise was surprised he'd say that, and she gazed at him. What were your grades like? Danny started to hum and haw. He never paid any attention in class ever, since he got into high school, and he slept during most exams, since he couldn't understand anything on the paper. Every time someone asked him about his grades, the answer he gave was simple. Not good. It's all right. Just tell me a rough number. Elise continued. Danny answered sheepishly. Around 50 each for English, math, and foreign language. And 100 for the comprehensive test, I guess. 250. That's not a good score. She frowned. Danny didn't want to admit it, but she was right. I guess so. She pursed her lips. It won't be easy for you to get into a college with that score. And that's why I'm asking you to help me out. You're a top student, aren't you? Danny looked at her expectantly, but Elise shrugged. So, what does that have to do with you? Danny huddled closer. Alex said it's important that we hang out with the right crowd. Take business for example. If I hang out with the billionaire, I can at least become a millionaire. If I hang out with the millionaire, I can make more money in a year than most of the population can in 3. Same thing with my studies. If I have your help, I can get into a regular college at the very least. Elise knew what he was getting at. So, you're saying you want my help? Danny nodded violently. You're my boss, right? And a lackey always needs their boss help. I don't think I can help you. She refused. Danny panicked, of course. What do you mean, boss? Are you worried that I won't listen to you? Don't fret. I'll do anything you ask, if you'll help me out. I'll quit my video games, and do anything you tell me to. I swear. Elise liked Danny's attitude, but it still didn't change the fact that this was a great undertaking. She never taught anyone before, so she might botch the job. And Danny might lose his zeal and quit real soon. If that was true, she would have wasted her time. Do you really want to do this? She asked again. Danny nodded without hesitation. Yeah, I'm sure I do. I can help you, but with a condition. Elise said. We will have to agree on a contract, and you'll have to listen to me for 5 months, which is until the entrance exam. If you disobey me, then the contract is voided. But if you do as I say, I promise you will get into a college without any problem. Deal. Danny answered quickly. I'll draft it once we get home. There's no turning back, Danny. Think it through. Take your time. Elise told him. I won't turn back now. Danny hurried upstairs after he came home, but Elise came in slowly. When the servant saw her, they greeted. Welcome home, Miss Elise. Elise took her coat off and handed it to the servant. The servant told her. All the young masters are home today, and they were in the backyard with Mr. Jonah. Will you be there too, Miss Elise? Elise was surprised that all 4 of them were home, since they spent most of their time doing their own thing. Yes. She went to the backyard, and saw Alexander playing chess with Jonah, while Jack and Brendan were giving tips. You don't see peaceful stuff like this every day now. Grandpa Griffith. Elise went over, and Jonah looked at her. You're back, Elise. Help me out. Alex has improved a lot, and I might lose this match. Elise took a look at the board, and she realized that they were evenly matched. No helpers, Grandpa. I'm holding you to that. Brendan told him. Jonah smiled. I know. I'm just getting her to help me out. Can't lose to Alex too much, can I? Elise chuckled. I don't think you'd lose, Grandpa Griffith. Quite the opposite, actually. Just do as you do, and you'll win. Jonah cracked a grin. That's what I like to hear. They huddled around the table and watched happily as the chess match unfolded. In the end, Jonah won, but only barely. Sirs, Miss Elise, dinner's ready. Jonah was delighted he won the game. All right. Time for dinner. They went to the dining hall, but just when they came to the porch, Danny came down and dragged Elise away. Take a look and tell me if anything needs changing, boss. I'll do it right away. Elise scanned the contract. There was barely any space between each line, and she was surprised that Danny managed to write almost every single clause in an hour. Efficient. So, give me something, boss. Are you sure you want to do this? She asked again. Danny nodded without any hesitation. Yes, I am. Willingly. Elise decided that she would give this a try as well. Fine. Give me a pen. Danny handed her one immediately, and she took it. When she finally signed the contract, Danny's eyes lit up. Elise handed the contract back to him. Done. Danny took it carefully, as if it was a priceless treasure. I'll be in your care now, boss. Elise grunted. It's dinner time, so let's go. Danny chuckled. No prob. It was the first time in a long time that everyone was having dinner together. Well, almost everyone. Matthew's spot was empty. Jonah looked at everyone for a moment. I called everyone back just for dinner as it has been a while. Thanks to you boys, the family's getting better and better. Glad to see you boys working together as a team, just like I told you to. Keep this up, all right? Alexander stared down before answering. We will, Grandpa. Brendan chimed in. We're a family, Grandpa, and that will never change. Jack nodded in agreement. Don't worry, Grandpa. We'll be better. Danny looked at everyone and resolved himself. I'll catch up to you guys too. I won't be a deadweight anymore. We'll work together. Elise was touched to see that. At that moment, she finally understood something that had been haunting her for a long time. Good to hear that. We will always be a family, remember that. Jonah smiled. Then he remembered something, and he said, Oh, almost forgot about this. The Lawsons sent us an invitation earlier. Their family head is celebrating his 60th birthday on the 18th. They are our great friends, so we are going to attend it. More specifically, one of you is going to attend. The brothers looked at one another for a moment, then Jack spoke first. I'm busy lately, Grandpa, so I don't think I can go. Brendan added, I'm going to a fashion show in Paris and the new designs are still in production, so I have to work on it. I'll have to decline. Danny was going to work on his grades, so he couldn't go to events like these like he used to. I have something to do too, Grandpa. In the end, Jonah looked at Alexander and Elise. Since they are busy, that leaves the both of you. Alex, Elise, you will be attending the celebration. Elise wanted to refuse, but Alexander said, I will tell Cameron to free up my schedule on the 18th. Elise swallowed her refusal. Sure, Grandpa Griffith. The Griffiths and Lawsons went way back. The Lawsons had two brilliant sons called Donald and Darius. They were powerful men in the political scene and the business world, making the Lawsons one of the most prestigious families in the upper society. The birthday party was held for Donald, and it was set on a luxurious yacht. When they arrived at the destination, there was already a group of distinguished guests there. I heard we will be staying on the yacht overnight. It will dock tomorrow afternoon, so if you want to retire for the night, you can ask the waiter to give you the key card. Alexander told Elise. Elise looked at the crowd. I see. And they got out of the car. Alexander held his elbow out, much to Elise's surprise. Hold my arm, he said. Elise hesitated, but she eventually held his arm, and they went toward the yacht. Alex. Even before they got to the yacht, Ashlyn was already waving at Alexander. Then, she came up to him quickly. "You're finally here," she said, as if they were close friends. "Yes. Thanks for the welcome, Miss Lawson," Alexander answered indifferently. Ashlyn noticed his distant attitude, of course, but she didn't mind. She had a big plan for the night, and the mere thought of that made her grin. She'd usually make snarky remarks at Elise, but not today. Her plan took precedence. "Oh, you're here too, Miss Sinclair. I hope you'll enjoy the night." Elise looked at her. "Thank you." Ashlyn noticed her holding Alexander's arm, but she ignored that. "I'll take you guys inside." "Please do, Miss Lawson." Ashlyn led the way for them. "Uncle wanted it to be a quiet celebration at the residence, but I told him to hold the party on a yacht. It's more fun that way, don't you think, Miss Sinclair?" Elise blinked at her, wondering why Ashlyn was being so nice today. "I bet the night view is going to be great on the yacht. You have thought this through." Ashlyn's smile broadened. "I have a special event arranged tonight, and I hope to see you there, Miss Sinclair." She winked cheekily at Elise, as if she was just an innocent young lady. If it wasn't because Elise nearly fell for her scheme in the past, Elise would have thought she was just a naive girl. "I'm sure it's an interesting event. Can't wait for it," Elise answered politely. Ashlyn gazed at her, the grin in her eyes twinkling. It was a huge yacht that could hold 500 guests, and it was decked out with entertainment facilities, a banquet hall, dining room, and guest rooms. Anyone could stay on the yacht for a month, and they still wouldn't get bored. After they got on the yacht, Ashlyn led them to the banquet hall. "My uncle's at that corner. We should go and say hi." It was common courtesy for the guests to greet the host, so Elise and Alexander went along. Donald was already a 60-year-old man, but he didn't look a day over 40. He looked as energetic and happy as a young lad. "Hello, Donald." Alexander greeted him. Donald beamed when he saw Alexander. "Good to see you, Alexander. It's been a while. You've grown a lot." "Yes, it has been years since we last met." Donald thought highly of Alexander. Once upon a time, he wanted to match his daughter up with the lad, but alas, his daughter ended up with a pauper. It shook their circle, and Donald was still furious about it. After all, if he could become the Griffiths' in-laws, it'd work wonders for his political career. "Still as energetic as ever, my lad. Griffith Group is going strong under your leadership, I see. I'm sure it will get even better. Do come over if you are free. The kids would love to see you. You have been friends since you were little." "Of course, Donald," Alexander answered. After that small talk, Alexander and Elise went to the hall. It was packed with guests, but Elise didn't like crowds, so she let go of Alexander's arm. "You should socialize with the guests. I'll get some fresh air on the deck," she whispered. "It's blustery out there. Be careful." Elise waved at him, and went outside to the deck alone. Night had fallen upon the land, and stars twinkled brightly in the heavens, basking the earth in a silvery sheen. There were only a few people on the deck, chatting away the time. Elise stood alone at one side, leaning against the guardrail as she enjoyed the night breeze. All of a sudden, someone popped up and tapped her shoulder, giving her a shock. When she turned around, she was surprised to see Zachary there. "Zachary? Why are you here?" Zachary's eyes were twinkling as he gazed at her. He didn't want to come in the first place, but his family thought it was time for him to make some connections of his own, so they took him along. He was bored when he came here, but to his surprise, he saw Elise in the hall. After she went to the deck, he followed along. "Mr. Lawson is my father's comrade. We have been friends for a long time now," he explained. After a pause, he continued. "Didn't think I'd see you here. I thought it would be a boring banquet, but now I got all interested. Elise smiled, but she said nothing. Did you come alone? He asked. Elise shook her head. No. Back then, she asked Alexander to act as her boyfriend, so she could refuse Zachary's courtship. It was a good thing that Alexander had played along, and that he was here now. Despite what Elise said, Zachary still thought she was alone. She's just trying to look good in front of everyone. I saw her coming onto the deck alone. He was delighted at the thought of that, for it was the perfect opportunity for him to know Elise better. The entrance exam is 5 months away. What's your dream college? Elise paused for a moment. She was a double-degree graduate, and only came to Athesia's high school because of a bet with her grandfather. She never considered any education after high school, since she had graduated from University of Edinburgh with a double degree already. Going through college for the second time was pointless for her. Elise shook her head. Not exactly. Zachary said. I'm aiming for Princeton, the top college in the nation. Elise said. I wish you all the best then. Zachary looked at her seriously, and pursed his lips. Elise, it shouldn't be a problem for you to get into Princeton, if you want to. You can consider it. Elise didn't answer that. Instead, she said, I don't really like Princeton. In other words, she would never opt for that college. Zachary was crestfallen for obvious reasons. Princeton was the top college in the nation, and his family wanted him to get into it, so he had no choice but to do it. But that meant he couldn't meet Elise, since she was not interested in it. It's fine. As long as you're Northcliffe. Elise knew what Zachary was trying to say, but she had to give him a clear-cut refusal. Bragging things out was a big taboo in relationships. She wouldn't give anyone even the slightest bit of hope if she didn't like him. I might not be going to any college, Zachary. You don't have to stubbornly cling on to me. You'll be living a great life, and meeting a lot of new people. Don't be too obsessed over me. You might just meet the girl of your life tomorrow. Zachary was looking at her, but he didn't seem to hear what she just said. I know, but I will still go on. In other words, he didn't mind that his love was unrequited. Even though she had no romantic interest in him, that wouldn't change how he felt about her. A frown appeared on her forehead. She never talked to him that much aside from that time in the National Math Olympiad training camp. Even then, they didn't talk about anything other than the competition. Why on earth does he like me that much? Sorry, Zachary. My boyfriend must be looking for me, so I have to leave now. She brought her boyfriend up, so Zachary would give up on her, but he only smiled. Sure. You go ahead. I will be waiting here. Elise went away, but she couldn't shake the weird feeling she got from meeting Zachary. However, she couldn't put a finger on why she felt weird, so she put it aside for the time being. Right after she came back into the hall, she saw Alexander in the crowd. Before she could meet up with him, Ashlyn stopped her. Miss Sinclair. When Elise turned around, she saw Ashlyn, who was surrounded by a group of rich ladies, come up to her. Elise smiled mirthlessly. Anything you need, Miss Lawson? No matter how many times Ashlyn saw her, she could never understand why Elise had the guts to stand among them. She's so basic and ugly. Is this the lady you told us about, Ashlyn? She looks special. One of the ladies said. She was Queenie, Ashlyn's friend. The moment she said that, the other lady snickered. Don't call her that. Queenie. She might not be a pretty girl, but she's a brave one. I don't think we get that kind of people in our circle nowadays. Queenie dismissed what her friend said, and she looked at Elise in contempt. She's just dragging our class down. Now I feel all dirty knowing someone like her is breathing the same air as me. Elise knew the girls were here to cause trouble at once, but she wouldn't give them the pleasure. Well, you can always get the hell out of here. You belong in the trash can anyway. Queenie flew into her rage. What did you just call me, you bitch? You are the trash here. Get a mirror for Pete's sake. Another lady called Nellie agreed. You know, you can get first prize even without any makeup on in a Halloween costume contest. If anyone here is ugly, it's you. Elise crossed her arms and stared at the ladies as she replied without skipping a beat. Honestly, I might be ugly, but at least I'm not a troll. You could be cast in the first Harry Potter's film and nobody could tell the difference between you and the troll in the dungeon. Before they could say anything, Elise looked at Ashlyn. You think this is funny? Remember what happened last time? Now that was funny. I can jog your memory for you, if you have forgotten all about it. Ashlyn could hear the implicit threat. She came here in the first place to embarrass Elise, but she never thought Elise would manage to shut her down so easily. Queenie and Nellie were about to retort, but Ashlyn stopped them. Let it go, girls. We don't have to waste our time with her. Don't forget what we are here for. Queenie and Nellie were disgruntled. They wouldn't have been insulted by Elise if it wasn't because of Ashlyn asking them for help. But now, instead of helping them out, Ashlyn told them to shut up, much to their annoyance. You told us to do it, Ashlyn. How could you do this, after what she said to us? Queenie grumbled. Nellie shared her sentiment. You'd better not use this as a means to an end. We are not stupid. The sudden infighting caught Ashlyn by surprise, but she had more important matters to handle, so it wasn't the time to antagonize them. I told you she managed to one-up me once, but I never thought she could handle you guys at the same time so easily. Seems like I underestimated her. Don't blame me for telling you guys to stop though. She has dirt on me, and she won't hesitate to spill it if I go any further back there. Ashlyn was starting to play victim. Queenie didn't like it, but it wasn't the time to be fighting among themselves, so she let it slide for the time being. It's not your fault, girl. Elise is better than we thought. I will have to teach her a lesson. You have a plan tonight, don't you? Add her into the equation. The guard outside should work well enough. Let's give her a free sampling then. The girls grinned at each other evilly as they concocted a sinister plan for Elise. Elise went back and strolled around the hall, but in the end, she took a seat on the couch, bored. A short while later, Alexander came to sit beside her. This might take a while. You can go to the cabin, if you want to. Elise nodded. I know. I will go in a bit. Since Elise hadn't eaten much, Alexander went to take some snacks for her. Here, eat something. Don't starve yourself. Elise looked up at him. Thank you. It's been a while, Mr. Griffith. One of Alexander's business partners came over to talk to him. Alexander gave Elise a look that said he had to leave for a while. Elise nodded at him and told him he could go. Alexander started chatting with his business partner. We will be in your care now, Mr. Griffith. A toast to our continued success. The business partner took 2 glasses from the waiter and handed one to Alexander. Alexander only took 1 sip, but his business partner downed it all in 1 gulp. I look forward to the partnership, Mr. Griffith. Alexander nodded. A while later, more company presidents went to chat with him. Alexander talked with them and kept sipping from his glass. He didn't drink much, but eventually, his glass was emptied. At the same time, Queenie was looking at Alexander smugly, then she grinned at Ashlyn. It's a powerful aphrodisiac, so be ready, girl. Ashlyn looked delighted. If it means I can get my hands on him, I don't care how powerful it is. Queenie knew how much Ashlyn wanted to marry Alexander, but she had to warn her as a friend. Ashlyn, he's not your regular guy. He might not marry you even if you guys had sex, so you have to be prepared. However, Ashlyn didn't heed that warning. He will marry me, I'm sure. Even if he doesn't care about me, he still has to do it, because of our families. And today's my dangerous day, so if this works, I might get knocked up, and his family won't allow his child to be born a bastard. He still has to marry me one way or another. Since Ashlyn had made her decision, Queenie knew it was impossible to dissuade her, so she let it go. Don't let your chance slip, and I will be sticking to the plan tomorrow. If this works, you better give me what I want, Ashlyn said confidently. Oh, don't worry about that. I never go back on my word. Just give me the key card. I'm counting on you guys now. Sure, Nellie and Queenie said at the same time. Then Queenie handed the key card to Ashlyn. It's room 2203. Ashlyn took the card and waved at them before heading toward the cabin. After she left, Nellie whispered, "What if they know we helped her? Alexander isn't to be trifled with. If he wants to get back at us, our families are going to be wrecked." Queenie didn't think so. Don't worry. They won't ever find out, and besides, so what if they did? We are the accomplices, not the mastermind. No matter how powerful he is, he can't do anything to us without proof. Nellie's worries were assuaged after that. So what about Elise? Darkness swirled within Queenie's eyes. She's going to get a big surprise. I have just the perfect man who can be her partner for the night. Her room's right next to Ashlyn's. They might even hear each other. The witches chuckled, their eyes glinting with malice. After Elise finished her snacks, a waiter came over with a tray filled with glasses. Our bartender just made these cocktails. Care to have a try, miss? Elise took one glass, and said thank you. She liked cocktails, so she took a sip, and it felt delicious. Not bad. The bartender's a decent one. She took another sip before putting the glass down, and went to see the receptionist. Hi, I'm Elise. I'm here for my key card. A minute, Mississippi. The staff member went to look for her key card, and handed it to her a moment later. Here's your card, Mississippi. Your room's on the right side of the corridor. Just walk straight from the side. She took the key, and glanced at the room number on it, 2202. Then, she went along the corridor. After she reached the room, Elise swiped the card and went inside. The room was resplendently decorated, but Elise wasn't in the mood to appreciate it. She cleaned her feet on the rug before closing the door behind her. Then, she went straight to the bed. For some reason, her head was feeling heavy ever since a while ago, and her body was heating up. Thinking it was seasickness, she slid under the blanket and decided to sleep. At the same time, a drunken man was wobbling in the corridor. Every inch of him screamed perversion, and he looked just like a thug. Damn it. I'm not there yet. The man cursed, and stopped to take a look at the room number on his keycard. The number on it seemed to read 2203, so he wobbled over to that room and double-checked it, before swiping it on the lock. Since the number matched, he swiped it, but the lock beeped, telling him he got the wrong room. He was just about to leave, but he tripped over himself, and slammed against the door, inadvertently opening it. He fell face first onto the ground, and he cursed. Fuck. Did someone push me or something? He got up from the ground, and waddled into the room. It was filled with the scent of roses, and the ambience hinted at a night of romance and sex. Seeing that, the man started to beam, and he picked up his pace. Ashlyn had come out of the bathroom, and changed into her pajamas. She even took a dose of aphrodisiac in case she was found out. At the moment, she was lying in bed, waiting for Alexander to ravage her. It didn't take long for her body to heat up with lust, and a void started to form within her. That void demanded her to have sex with a man, and she tried to resist it at first, but eventually, she started crumbling. Not a bad aphrodisiac. The next moment, she heard someone opening the door, and she felt delighted, thinking that it was Alexander. Ashlyn quickly turned the lights off without thinking, and slipped under the covers. When she heard the footsteps coming closer to her, the flames of lust burned even brighter within her. The man eventually pounced onto her. I'm coming, lady. Ashlyn didn't know who the man was, but what she did know was that she could finally fill that void of lust within her. Without any hesitation, she embraced the man, and a symphony of lust started playing in the room. A long sleep later, Elise woke up feeling even more uncomfortable than she was before she went to bed. Her throat felt parched, and she tried to quench her thirst with a glass of water, but it didn't help one bit. Instead, the water only fueled the flames within her. "What's wrong with me?" she mumbled. Elise took another big gulp of water, but it still didn't help. Instead, she was starting to sweat. "Why am I sweating? The room's probably too hot." She thought that must be it, so Elise went outside. She wanted to get some fresh air on the deck, but she bumped into Alexander the moment she came out. "Alexander, why are you here?" At that very moment, she felt like Alexander was different tonight, and she was overwhelmed by this urge to pounce on him. "Alexander, you look so sexy tonight," Elise blurted, perhaps a bit more honest than she wanted to be, but in her defense, she had no idea what she was saying. Alexander thought something was off with her. Her face was unusually red, and when he touched her forehead, his face fell. "Someone drugged you?" Elise looked at him dumbly. She kept gulping as she held down her urge to pounce on him. All she wanted to do was to get closer to him. Before she could finish, Alexander dragged her back into the room and slammed the door shut. Then he took her to the bathroom. "What are you doing?" she asked. Alexander didn't elaborate. He turned the faucet on and filled the tub with water. At the same time, everything started spinning around Elise. She shook her head to clear herself up a bit, but that started making her see doubles. "Hey, there's like a dozen of you here. Am I hallucinating?" Alexander shoved her into the tub. Elise reflexively covered her face right before she made contact with water. Even when she was half-conscious, she still didn't want to ruin her makeup. When the ice-cold water splashed against her skin, Elise was jolted awake. She looked up at Alexander, and the doubles were gone. "What are you doing?" she asked. Alexander stared at her and was about to answer, but he felt his belly tensing up, and his breathing turned heavier. *T. I have a bad feeling about this. Just as he suspected, he started heating up a moment later. Alexander quickly turned around to keep himself from looking at Elise. "Stay in the tub, and don't come out, unless I say so." Elise nodded dumbly, then Alexander went out and closed the bathroom door. He was experienced enough to know why his body was starting to react that way. "Someone drugged me too." Fortunately, it was still manageable for him. He held his urges back and tried to call someone, but he realized the signal was too weak, for they were at sea. "I can't even make a call." His face fell. If this keeps up, who knows what might happen? He made a decision and went back to the room to find something. In the end, he saw a rod lying around, so he took it and speared his thigh with it. A searing pain shot up from his leg, but he didn't even groan. It sobered him up, however, and the flames of lust died down a lot. He felt relieved, but that didn't stop him from calling Cameron. After countless calls, it finally went through. "Sir," Alexander quickly said. "Someone drugged me. It's an aphrodisiac, and it's going to peak." Before he could finish, the phone went dead. Damn it. No signal again. Left with no choice, he kept the phone and glanced at his bloody leg. "I have to do this." He held the rod up again and speared his leg with it. Blood flowed down his thigh, but he didn't even wince. All he hoped was to wait out the aphrodisiac this way. "Open the door, Alexander." Elise got out of the bathtub and banged on the door, but Alexander held it back, preventing her from coming out. "Get back into the tub, and don't come out." Elise had sobered up, but her lust was stoked the moment she came out of the bathtub. "What is the meaning of this? Open the door. Just get back into the tub, and don't come out." She couldn't argue with it, and she was starting to feel uncomfortable again. The only way to feel better was to stay in the bathtub, so she went back. Once she slid into the bathtub, she felt much better. the both of them tried their best to endure the aphrodisiac. Once the effect peaked, Alexander kept stabbing his leg to stave the lust off. Eventually, he went numb with pain. At the same time, Elise stayed in the bathtub to keep her lust at bay. Once the effect went away, she leaned back and drifted to sleep. Time dragged on. When the aphrodisiac wore off, it was already late night. Alexander's shirt was drenched with his sweat, and his leg was a bloody mess. He should have been in agony, but still he got up and hobbled to the bathroom. "How do you feel, Elise?" He knocked on the door. But there was no response. He knocked on the door again. But there was still no response. In the end, he opened the door and saw Elise sleeping in the bathtub. She looked beautiful when she was asleep, and it stirred something within him. Alexander gulped, but he quickly looked away. "Wake up, Elise." He strode over to her. "Don't sleep. You are going to catch a cold." However, Elise was sound asleep, and he couldn't wake her up. Plan B then. He fished her out of the water and took her back to the room, even though he was getting drenched. Elise drowsily wrapped her arm around his neck and leaned against his chest in a comfortable position. It was a silent room, but Alexander could hear his heart pounding, and he could feel a panic attack coming up. But it was not the time for that, so he put her on the bed and called a staff member with the phone on the bedside. After the staff member came, he handed her a wad of cash. "Get her a set of clothes." The waitress took the wad of cash at once and came back with her work attire. "Sir, I only have my own clothes here. She's about the same size as I am, so can this work?" Alexander wasn't a picky man, so he allowed it. The staff member left after that, but the bed was already wet and not fit for sleeping. Luckily, it was a big room, so he took her to the couch. As he looked down at her, he realized that Elise didn't look so ugly. In fact, her features were decent, but they seemed out of place together. Still, that didn't change the fact that she was pretty. The mere thought of her being pretty made Alexander avert his gaze. Since it was still a few hours away from daybreak, Alexander got a blanket and slept on the floor beside Elise. "This is going to be a long night." Yes, but at the same time, it was also a short one. When Elise woke up, she felt weak, as if all strength had left her. She slowly got up, and the first thing she saw was Alexander lying on the ground. That shocked her, but then she remembered what happened last night, and her face fell. She could remember what happened the night before vividly, and she knew what that meant. "Someone set me up." She clenched her fists. "I don't know who they are, but they will pay for this." Suddenly, she remembered something. Elise quickly got off the couch and went to the bathroom. After she closed the door, she looked in the mirror and heaved a sigh of relief. "Good thing my makeup isn't ruined. If I'm busted, there's going to be trouble." She got her makeup back in order and confirmed it was fine before coming out. At the same time, Alexander woke up.
Subscribe. Like, comment, share.
Elise felt awkward facing him, but still she asked, "Are you all right?" A frown appeared on his forehead. He was mostly fine, but the pain from his thigh made him gasp. "Come here," he said coldly. She wondered why he wanted her there, but still she went over. It was then she saw the blood caked on his pants. "What happened to your leg? Are you okay?" She went down to give it a closer look, and found out that his blood had drenched his whole pants and dried up. "It's just a flesh wound. Nothing big." He dismissed it. "Prop me up. Once we dock, I will get Cameron to patch it up." Elise frowned. "No. That looks serious. You should go to a hospital." She propped him up and put him down on the couch. Elise didn't take her eyes away from the wound. Even though he was the wounded one, she could also feel the pain from it. He could have succumbed to the aphrodisiac last night, but instead of doing so, he injured himself just to keep her safe. That touched her. Does it hurt? No. He answered calmly. Of course it hurts. But Elise didn't say that, for she knew he was just trying to act tough. However, she had decided to take him to the hospital. Right after they docked. It was then they heard a commotion outside, and it got louder as time passed. What happened out there? Elise asked. Alexander stared down. No idea. Probably some accident or something. At the same time, a big crowd was standing outside room 2203, staring at the naked couple on the bed. They heard that an unidentified man had infiltrated the cabin, so they came with a bunch of guards in case the guests were in danger. But when they barged in, all they saw was a naked couple on the bed instead of a suspicious man. That's Miss Lawson. What is she doing? I thought she's single. When did she get a boyfriend? I have never seen the guy. He's not one of us. The crowd was whispering among themselves. They would have snapped a lot of photos, if it weren't because of the fact that Ashlyn was Donald's daughter. Ashlyn? Queenie blurted, but when she saw the man beside her, she was shocked. What's going on? Nellie was dumbfounded as well. Hey, isn't that Queenie covered her mouth before she could finish and gave her a look. They swallowed their words and slunk into a corner, hoping nobody would see them. Donald hurried over after his servant, alerted him to this, but when he saw what was going on, he had a meltdown. He had never been so humiliated before, and his face was red with fury. Wake them up, he roared. Nellie and Queenie shivered in fear from the sheer anger Donald was displaying. Their plan was to get Alexander to sleep with Ashlyn, but another guy had taken his place instead, while Alexander was nowhere to be found. Queenie tugged on Nellie's shirt, whispering, "What now? She'll kill us." Nellie was terrified as well. She turned around to look at Queenie, stammering, We couldn't have predicted this. How should we know she's this thirsty?" Sleeping with random. Before she could finish, Ashlyn's scream overwhelmed her. Naturally, Ashlyn was shocked when she found out what happened as well. She was confused and didn't know what to do. Everyone was staring at her in contempt, and she wondered why. When she looked at the man beside her, she shrieked. Who are you?" She could never imagine herself coming face to face with a total stranger. After all, she was expecting Alexander in her bed. To make things worse, she was now a public spectacle, and that realization broke her down. She pulled the blanket over to cover her face. "Get out. Everyone get out." Donald looked like he would yell at her again. Over all these years in the political scene, never once did he get embroiled in a scandal. However, his track record was now ruined by his own niece. "You bitch." Ashlyn's father showed up and gave her one tight slap. "You humiliated us," he growled. Ashlyn couldn't believe her father just slapped her. Darius looked at Donald carefully. "Terribly sorry for this, Donald. This is all my fault." Then Darius looked at everyone coldly. They knew what he was getting at, so they excused themselves. "We had no idea about this, Mr. Lawson." "Oh, look at the time. We should be leaving now." "I'm leaving too, Mr. Lawson." "She is still young, so it's normal for her to do something like this." "Don't yell at her, please." Most of the guests were his colleagues and friends. Even though they were trying to calm him down, he felt humiliated for some reason. On the other hand, Ashlyn felt a chill running up her spine. The slap hurt, but the realization that her future was doomed hurt her even more. "This is it for me." The man had woken up as well, but he too was shocked to see what was happening. Mr. Lawson. What happened?" Donald glared at the man. If looks could kill, the man would have died 10 times over. However, he wouldn't yell at him just yet, for he was reluctant to air any dirty laundry. Even so, he wanted to salvage his reputation, or what was left of it. "Everyone, if it's possible, can you keep this a secret?" "Sure, Mr. Lawson." "I saw nothing." "Same here. I got here for some reason, but I see nothing here. Let's leave, guys. There's nothing to see here. We should go. In the end, Queenie and Nellie were the only outsiders left in the cabin. Donald shot them a cold glare, and Queenie took off with Nellie. We will be leaving now, Mr. Lawson. And they made a run for it. Once everyone was gone, Darius said. Ashlyn only did this on impulse, Donald. She doesn't know better. That does not mean she can dishonor our family. Darius didn't argue. He might be a man in his 50s, but he was still scared of his older brother. You're right. I'll make sure she doesn't do this again. And everyone's keeping this a secret, I swear. You make it sound so easy. Do you think they will really listen, just because you tell them to? They aren't stupid, you know? Donald was starting to get annoyed by his brother's stupidity. Yes, you're right. I promise I will handle this. Darius glared at Ashlyn. Well, don't just stand there. Cover yourself with something. Ashlyn was shivering in fear, but she said nothing. Donald snorted and laughed, while Darius followed suit. In the end, only Ashlyn and the man were left in the room. The man was still groggy from his hangover. All he could remember was that he had fun last night, but he never thought his partner would be one of the Lawsons. Now that he already had sex with her, there was no way to take it back. He whispered, I didn't know it was you, Miss Lawson. You started it last night, and I was forced to go along. Ashlyn pulled the blanket down and yelled, You bastard. Say one more word and I will tear you apart. She had been holding her tears back, but now they were streaming down her cheeks. This isn't how it was supposed to go. What happened? Why isn't Alex here with me? Now everyone saw me in bed with another guy. There's no way Alex would date me anymore. She hit the bed as an outlet for her anger. Finally, she started crying out loud, much to the man's shock. It's okay, Miss Lawson. Actually out. Out, I say. Ashlyn hurled a pillow at the man, sending him tumbling out of the bed. Unbeknownst to her, he was naked, and the moment she saw his dangling bits, she shrieked. Elise and Alexander were just coming out of their cabin, when they heard Ashlyn scream. Elise frowned in confusion, then the door of room 2203 burst open, and the half-naked man came out with nothing but a towel covering his privates. From the looks of it, he was escaping something or someone. Elise ignored that. She kept propping Alexander up, asking, Are you all right? He grunted. I'm fine. Elise didn't think so. She was frowning in worry as she tried to hurry Alexander to a hospital, so he could get his leg looked at. Just when they were going through the hall, they heard another commotion happening. A moment later, Ashlyn slapped Queenie right in front of everyone. You did that, didn't you? You bitch. Ashlyn growled, glaring at Queenie, as if the latter killed her father. Queenie clutched her face, but she didn't say anything. She couldn't believe she was slapped, after helping Ashlyn out so much. Ashlyn was angered even further, and she slapped Queenie once more. By then, everyone's eyes were on them. Nellie stopped Ashlyn. What are you doing, Ashlyn? This has nothing to do with Queenie. But Ashlyn didn't listen to her. Instead, she looked at Nellie coldly. So that means you're behind this. Ashlyn slapped Nellie this time, and Nellie clutched her face in pain. She was going to explain herself, but after that slap, she changed her mind. You can't change anything, even if you kill me, Ashlyn. Nellie snapped, for she had nothing to lose. Ashlyn was extremely triggered by that reply. She pounced on Nellie like a rabid dog that would bite anyone who so much as looked at her the wrong way. You bitch. You did this to me. I will kill you. Nobody went up to help. In the end, the guards had to step up and pull them apart. But that didn't stop Ashlyn from spitting at Nellie. Nellie's face was scratched, and her whole body throbbed in pain. Oh, so this is how it's going to be, huh? Since Ashlyn humiliated her, Nellie wouldn't let it slide so easily. Don't get so riled up, Ashlyn. You did this to yourself. The guests were visibly interested when they heard that. They could smell a gossip brewing, and they listened closely. After all, everyone knew Ashlyn had slept with random men in her cabin by that point, so any insider detail was sure to be something they wanted to hear. You bitch. I knew it. You're the one behind this. A smile tugged at Nellie's lips. You asked me to help you, Ashlyn. But now you're blaming me. So ungrateful. And to think you're one of the Lawsons. How far you have fallen. You'd do anything to get your hands on Alexander, including getting yourself knocked up, so he will be forced to marry you. Pity your plans failed due to the accident. Nobody could have predicted that, so don't vent on us for your own fault. Queenie looked at Ashlyn in contempt. She never imagined Ashlyn to be so savage and brutish. Since she threw the first punch, Queenie didn't have to hold back either. Hey, you gave us the aphrodisiac, and you told us to spike his drink. We did as you said, but we had no idea why you ended up sleeping with a different guy. Everyone gasped in surprise. Wow, this is one big drama. No, wait. This is a conspiracy. Ashlyn pounced on Queenie like a crazed woman. What did you say, you bitch? I will kill you. Queenie faced Ashlyn's assault head-on, but it quickly devolved into a brawl. Even then, nobody went ahead to stop them, worried they might get hurt themselves. In the end, Donald had to come over with his men to stop the fight. Ashlyn's eyes were red with anger, and she was glowering at Queenie. You are not getting away with this so easily, bitch. This isn't the end. Donald finally snapped at that point, and he slapped Ashlyn again. Enough. You've humiliated us for the last time. That slap finally made her calm down, but that didn't stop Queenie. You brought this on yourself, Ashlyn. Honestly, I thought that was a low blow even from you. Good thing your plan didn't go through, or it'd be a bad day for the Griffiths. If Alexander was really forced to marry an evil bitch like you, it would be the end of their family. That was the first time someone ever insulted Donald that way. To be fair, he wasn't the target of that insult, but he still felt humiliated. Take her away, he told his bodyguards. A moment later, they propped Queenie up and took her away. But even so, that didn't stop her from cursing. You can't let her go, Uncle Donald. You can't. Ashlyn frothed at the mouth. If she leaves, I'll be finished. She has to die, or I won't be able to survive in this circle. But Donald didn't listen to Ashlyn, and told his guards to bring Ashlyn away as well. Eventually, the crowd calmed down. The guests didn't say anything, since Donald was there. However, they had told everyone about Ashlyn's actions when he wasn't looking. Embellished it, even. At the same time, everyone was glancing at Alexander. They would have said something, but Alexander was too imposing for them to do so. Let's go, Alexander said curtly. He was about to leave, but then Donald came up to them. Can you give me a minute, Alex? I need to talk to you, Alexander answered, indifferently. I'm sorry, Mr. Lawson, but I don't think we need to talk about anything. It was a slight change in how he was addressed, but it set off Donald's alarms. He knew Ashlyn had crossed the line, but he secretly thought it would have been great for the Lawsons if she actually succeeded. Well, he couldn't say that out loud, so he pretended to look sad. I know Ashlyn crossed the line and it's over between her and your family, but that doesn't change the fact that our families are still friends. I will teach her a lesson, I swear. She won't forget about it anytime soon. Before he could finish, Illy sneered. Well, that's putting it lightly, Mr. Lawson. You think you can end this with just a simple apology? We are not stupid, you know. Donald never even cared about Elise. Now that she had spoken up, he finally looked at her, but his gaze was not friendly. She's still my family. Furthermore, her plan didn't succeed, did it? That's what matters in the end, he said brazenly. How disgusting. So you're saying it's okay to drug someone as long as their plan fails in the end? And I thought public servants should know more about the law, but it seems like I'm proven wrong. Or are you trying to say you'd rather protect your niece, even if that means you'd get demoted? Donald was struck with fear after Elise said that. The whole reason he managed to climb up this high on the social ladder was because of his political status. If he were to be demoted, his family would be ruined. You're a great debater, aren't you, miss? Donald wiped the sweat off his forehead and backed down. How about this? Tell me what you want me to do with Ashlyn, Alex. I'll do as you say. Alex didn't say a word until that point. After all, Elise was cute when she butted heads with Donald. Also, he could feel that she was protecting him, and he liked that feeling, so he wanted it to last a while longer. Is that so, Mr. Lawson? Donald nodded. I want to end this here. After all, I still want to be friends with your family. Elise crouched down and pulled Alexander's pants up, revealing his wound under the fabric. We will take that offer, Mr. Lawson. So how about you start with this thing here? Sure, the wound's healing up, but that doesn't mean it won't leave a scar. I will make sure Ashlyn gets a painful reminder about this. Elise was talking calmly, but she managed to scare Donald for the first time in his life. She might look ugly and young, but she was more imposing than him, who had worked in the political scene all his life. I will hand her over to you, Alex. You can do whatever you want to her, but just keep her alive. Just what I wanted. Elise thought. Alexander knew what she was thinking, so he agreed to it. Sure. I can work with that. That's a yes. Woo. Donald heaved a sigh of relief. That looks serious, Alex. Why don't you go to our hospital? I'll get the best doctor to treat you. No. Alexander refused. You don't have to do that. This is just a small wound. Just dock the yacht, so that we can get off. Donald quickly told the staff to dock the yacht. It was only after Elise and Alexander left that he realized his back was drenched with sweat. I want to know everything about the woman who was with Alexander, he told his underling. Then he mumbled. I did my best, Ashlyn. It's all on you now. Cameron had been waiting at the pier for a while. When Alexander and Elise disembarked, he quickly welcomed them. How do you feel, sir? Just a scratch. Let's go back to the company, he answered calmly. Elise refuted that suggestion. No. To the hospital first. That put Cameron in a tough spot. Who should I listen to? Miss Sinclair. The young master. Sir, what should I do? Alexander was about to say something, but Elise didn't give him a chance to speak. Do you seriously think that you're made of steel? How can you still work when you're hurt like this? Go to the hospital, she instructed without any room for negotiation. Upon hearing this, he felt a sense of warmth in his heart. He was not offended at all as he could sense the concern in her voice. Meanwhile, Cameron held his breath. Finally, Alexander said, Let's go to the hospital first. Relieved, Cameron answered. Yes, Mr. Griffith. Please get into the car with Miss Sinclair. After getting into the car, Alexander and Elise sat next to each other as the car sped off toward the hospital. Sitting in the passenger seat, Cameron eyed the two of them. Though the two did not say anything, Cameron could clearly feel that they were acting differently compared to before. However, he couldn't point out exactly what was different. Hence, he didn't put too much thought into it, and sent Alexander to the hospital. Alexander's wounds were simply superficial, and he seemed to be doing fine after the doctor treated them. Remember to rest well, avoid direct contact with water, and come back in time to get your dressings changed, the doctor reminded as he prescribed Alexander some medicine. For the first time in forever, Alexander did not refute but conceded. As soon as Alexander came out of the doctor's office, Elise stood up from the chair immediately. How did it go? Are you all right? Tossing her the medicine, he replied. I'm fine. I just need to take my medicine and get my dressings changed on time. Hearing this, she sighed in relief. Don't go to the company today. Go home and have a good rest. Immediately, they stopped him in his tracks and made him turn around to look at her. At that moment, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed to meet his glare. Why are you staring at me like that? Softly, he questioned. Why are you making decisions for me, Elise? Stunned, she came back to her senses after a few seconds. I'm only doing this for your sake. She stuttered as she tried to come up with a good excuse. After acknowledging her, he told her. There are still some matters I need to settle back at the company. I'll ask Cameron to send you home. However, she was unwilling to just leave it at that. Look at your leg. Can't you just stop working for a while? Are you going to take care of me if I stop working? He raised his eyebrows. She was dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Cameron, who was listening, was also stupefied by such a weird conversation. I. She stammered, struggling to find the right words for a long time. In response, the corner of Alexander's mouth lifted as he smirked evilly when no one was looking. Then, Cameron interjected at the right time. Mr. Griffith, I think you should listen to Miss Sinclair. After all, she's a major shareholder of the Griffith Group. Besides, it wouldn't be a problem for her to take care of you. As soon as Cameron said this, Alexander and Elise turned to give him a cold-eyed stare. What are you talking about? Elise fumed. I was simply going along with what you said, Miss Sinclair. I'm only doing it for Mr. Griffith's sake. Understanding his double-edged remark, she thought that what Cameron said made sense. Yet, she felt that something was wrong. Why do I need to take care of Alexander? Whatever. Do whatever you want. She left at once after saying this, ignoring the questions she had. She had only suggested it out of concern anyway. She didn't know that it would raise so many questions. Watching as she left, Alexander couldn't help but feel a little happy. He realized that she was actually pretty adorable. Cameron, is there anything urgent back at the company? Cameron came back to his senses and thought about it for a moment. Basically, there was nothing much to do, except for some trivial matters that the subordinates could handle, even if Alexander was out of office. You can rest assured and take a break at home. You have us at the company. Hearing this, Alexander raised his brows lightly. I will head back home, since you said so. Take care of the company's matters. Then, he patted Cameron's shoulder and continued. Do your best. I trust you. Whether or not you get promoted to special assistant in the future depends on your performance. Motivated by Alexander's encouragement, Cameron reassured him, don't worry. I will do my very best. With that, Alexander acknowledged Cameron's reply and limped after Elise. After coming out of the hospital, Elise booked a taxi, which arrived soon after. Quickly, she opened the door to get into the car. Just then, Alexander hurried into the car first. What are you doing? Get out. Turning to look at her, he told her in a serious manner. I want to go home too. It's on the way. You. She wanted to say something, but he had moved unwillingly to make space for her. Biting her lip, she got into the car without saying anything. Then, the taxi driver started the car and drove away slowly. Along the way, the radio played Jack's song that was making a big hit online. It was undeniable that his low and mellow voice gave away a magnetic feeling and seemed recognizable to many listeners. Together with the beautiful lyrics, it was very pleasing to the ears. Alexander was also fascinated by this song, mainly because of its melody and style, which were surprisingly similar to his memory of age. Though he was puzzled, he didn't suspect anything. After all, Jack never bothered to plagiarize or imitate anyone, so he figured it must be a coincidence. Moments later, the taxi driver parked his car at the entrance of the Griffith residence. As Elise and Alexander made their way out of the taxi, she had intended to ignore him, but he stopped her all of a sudden. Hold on. What? He turned her head and asked irritably. Seeing the unfriendly look on her face, he replied immediately, I can't walk really well. Please help me. In truth, she wanted to reject him, but after giving it some thought, the reason why his leg was injured was because he didn't want to hurt her under those circumstances. That was quite admirable. Thus, she walked toward him. Take it easy. I will hold you. He wasn't kidding. When he said he needed her help, he leaned partially on her and limped toward the door. The servants who saw this knowingly moved away and acted as if they didn't see anything. A busybody servant even reported seeing this to Jonah. Jonah's face brightened up instantaneously as soon as he heard this from the servant while he was watering the plants upstairs. Really? They were hugging each other when they came in. It's inaccurate to say that they were hugging, but it's true that Miss Sinclair and Mr. Griffith seemed close. Besides, he had his arms around her shoulders. With that, it really looked like he was hugging her, the servant thought. So, the servant nodded. Yes, sir. I think they are dating. Upon hearing this, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. I feel relieved hearing you say that. Thank God. Things are finally going as expected. You did well. I will double your bonus this month. Thank you, sir. The servant uttered excitedly.
Subscribe. Like. Comment. Share.